So I've got the Quad City Times political focus group back here, and we're going to move on to the economy, specifically inflation and how it's impacted you over the past couple of years. Who wants to talk about that? Nobody?
I'll go because I went grocery shopping today.
Okay.
So I went to Fairway and I bought a cart of groceries and I got some things from my college student who was telling me he was living on ramen. So I basically doubled the meat I was gonna buy so I could give him some, and it was $172. And he said, "Mom, please buy me some eggs because eggs are so expensive." And I think the eggs were like $3.49 for 18. And so, yeah, I've been thinking about getting some chickens, but I don't think it's legal in Bettendorf to have chickens.
Might raise your own chickens?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm cut out for the pioneer
Yeah.
life, but I've been thinking about it.
So the grocery bill goes up, and what does that do for the rest of your,
Well, we're luckily, we're empty nesters, so our water bill went way down once everybody moved out. We're still paying car insurance, which is high. We're still paying for cell phones. We're helping the one kid with food, but luckily for us, the inflation kind of happened at a time when we were paring down our lifestyle anyway.
yeah.
But I feel bad for people on fixed incomes like my father-in-law, who don't have the opportunity to go out and get another job.
Yeah. Who else wants to talk about their impact of inflation? Eugene?
I'm a John Deere guy. From started when I was 19, I never worried about money one day in my life. And I retired a few years ago, and I had saved a little money in my 401k. I got my pension, I'm on Social Security. And when I've seen the prices, of course I listen to my wife too, but I think, you know, in my whole life I never thought, you know, a person can actually run out of money. And I see the prices going up and I see what I have and I say, dang, a person, that money is a finite thing. I could run out of it. And I had never thought of that before. Never thought of that before. Even during the Carter years, when if you grab something off the shelf, you wanted to make sure that the clerk wasn't trying to put a new price sticker on it before you could get to the cash register.
But I just want to note that Eugene does have the Constitution in his pocket now.
Yes,
Everybody.
and so do you guys.
I have it on my phone.
Who else has, Jonathan?
Yeah, my experience hasn't been quite like that, but I have had very similar situations. I mean, gas is running in some places up to $4 a gallon right now. I remember growing up when it was below $1. Everything's gone up. I just bought a car. Just 4, 5, 8 years ago, the same car would have cost me, instead of costing me almost $7, would have cost me $3. I can't go to I barely buy groceries simply because I live alone. I'm a bachelor. I can barely buy enough food to keep one person alive with my job, and there's times I'm working, you know, on a 40-hour week. I can't necessarily always. There's been times I've wondered if I'm gonna be able to make it. If my rent goes up this week, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it through next year. And because my apartment rent's gone up by almost $75 since I moved in just 3 years ago. If things keep going like this, who's going to be able to afford anything? I have my parents are adopted a few years ago and a little girl. She's now 8. It's eating them alive.
Who else? Yeah, Tim, you were going to say something?
Well, maybe it's inappropriate. The inflation, I pay attention to it. I realize that in my mind, there's not much I can do about it. The Fed really is an independent organization that makes the cuts on interest rates. Cars, tariffs. To me, it's that simple. My Volvo's not made in Sweden anymore. It's made in China, and there are tariffs from China that are attached to that vehicle that weren't before. So I know I'm going to pay a premium for that if I want that vehicle. I could buy a Malibu instead, you know, that's made in this country that might be cheaper, but that's a choice on my part. It's a choice to have a cell phone. It's a choice what kind of insurance you have. It's a choice what kind of house you live in. It's a choice what kind of education you have. It's a choice about job training. Gene made a real specific decision when he was younger about going back to the factory because it was going to pay better. We all make choices in our lives in terms of what's going to affect us economically. And while I understand $3.49 for 18 eggs is money, some of it's the things that we do that put in course of whether we can afford something or not. And I think there's some individual accountability there that you gotta own. It's not, I don't think it's fair to everybody, but
Yeah, Paula.
I agree that there's individual accountability in all of that too. Like, I really feel like people live way far outside of their means and then inflation hits even harder. But I also worry a lot about the younger generations, because he's sitting here talking about I have a pension, his social security's fully funded. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff going on where, I mean, I think about the gas, like you said, I was alive when where I was buying gas when it was less than $1. I was buying gas when it was a little, like $1.89, I think, when I first started buying gas. And I'm pretty sure I was a waitress back then. And I'm pretty sure waitresses make the exact same amount of money as I did at that time. And I get it. It doesn't necessarily affect me at this point in my life, because I mean, I guess I'm making up, I can cut back, I can do those things. But I don't know if I would have been able to survive being 18 again if I was 18 right
you
now.
know, you said the younger generation, I about fell over because to me, you are the younger generation.
I know.
And there's another one coming.
But it's,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's getting worse. It's getting worse for those
I
people.
understand.
I don't have the option for a pension. I'm not gonna have my social security's not gonna be
Lori?
fully funded. It's not gonna be available till 75.
Laura, you're part of the younger generation.
Well,
that Paul
what
was
you were
talking
talking
about.
about Social Security really, I remember like in high school American government, our teacher was always like, the baby boomer generation is so big compared to your generation, like you can't always afford to like sustain like their Social Security benefits, and then the generation below us is gonna be even smaller, and will they be able to help us? So what you were saying was like really rang true in my head with what you were saying in terms of that.
So do you worry that you won't have a pension and you won't have some of the things previous generations had?
I guess I personally don't, because it feels so far away in the future, but I know a lot of my friends do have that worry. They're like, well, I have a Social Security, and like, is it even worth me putting money in, because will there be any output in the future?
You should start.
So-
Tom,
Right now,
Probably,
you
yeah.
should.
Jonathan?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember being
I think I said your name.
that age and being in that chair, so to speak, more or less. The thing is, I'm now where my parents were then. And I'm looking at it, and not only is Social Security going to not be there, there is no pension. There is not a 401k. There is literally nothing for me, because I'm pretty much at paycheck to paycheck right now. So there is no, I've had people ask me, what's your plan? I said, I'm gonna work till I die, because there is literally nothing out there that is going to support me. I have to try to make sure I'm in the best condition I can, as long as I can, because
Yeah.
anything goes wrong, and it's going to be over.
I think more people are feeling that way, where they feel like they're gonna have to work longer, and yeah, David?
I just have one concern on inflation in general, and I know it's bad, and I've seen the pain at groceries. I've traveled a lot, so you know, as I go to different cities, I think we have it really good here in Iowa. Because I was in DC in a grocery watching somebody struggling to choose anything that was not a generic brand, and shopping in a smaller cart, because she's saying that she used to have a big cart, rolling cart, but now she has to restrict herself to a shopping basket because of the pain. And I'm not sure if I'm going to get through the week with the shopping basket, but it's all I can afford. So I've seen the pain of it, but my concern is we have a significant ability to blame the active president, the politician at the time, where we just went through a pandemic. We had significant draconian economic efforts to stimulate the economy after a pandemic and to save us from a recession. The aftermath from all of that money being pumped into the economy is inflation. And I wish, we were talking before this about, I wish there was some truth commission that would actually just show us, regardless of who's in office, what would have happened, and we could be discussing maybe a 1% difference in inflation versus when I was president, inflation was this, but the pandemic happened at the end of your term. So we can't compare without having, a normalized effect for these external shocks.
So that's a good segue into my next question, which is, does Joe Biden have anything to do? Is it Joe Biden's fault?
We need to stop printing money we don't have. That means that our federal government is gonna have to say no to some things. And they're gonna have to make people upset.
And that's not necessarily a partisan thing.
Right, it's, both sides have done it, and it needs to stop. Because we can't continue the way we're going.
It's hard though, because I mean, you brought up earlier, like we need to spend a bunch of money in North Carolina because there's a disaster going on. I
Okay,
mean,
then,
stuff does happen,
Mhm.
but we all should recognize that it happens to all presidents and all presidents respond to it and not demonize presidents for not responding the way they want when they're actually responding.
So Matthew, you were gonna say something, do you still have that?
Yeah, there might be a positive in some of the inflation that's happening right now. And the only positive that I can see out of that is people who had graduated like myself in, around 2020, we're getting our first job out of college hopefully, or perhaps, not on a college track, but still you're getting that first job, and I think a lot of people are seeing, they are focusing on what they can do in their own futures to kind of help with things that they don't think are always there. I know a lot of people my age are, they know exactly how to invest in a 401k and what other options are available, or a TSP, or whatever you might have available. They know that. They want to get on that track early. They understand that the onus is on them as an individual. And they also, they know that if they want to save for a house, that starts early. That takes a lot of, it does take saying no. I agree with what Jessica just said, that we can't keep deficit spending as a nation, because eventually that's going to come back and bite us. And it's going to come back when people my age are the same age as Eugene or Matt sitting here, and it's going to come back when people younger than me are in their prime working years. I mean, it will come around, and I think we need to take the deficit spending seriously, and that might mean raising some taxes for some people, and it probably means saying no to some programs. It's a balance.
All right, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up this segment. Thanks, everybody.